is the 2027 Project Support Application Workshop. So we're only going to be talking about the application cycle for project support. So if you are a current general operating support grantee, this wouldn't be the best workshop for you. Feel free to reach out to your grant manager. And if you don't know who that is, feel free to send us a chat and we'll be happy to find out who that is. But again, welcome. We're so happy to have all of you guys here, and we will get started. Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that the land that we stand on and the place that we call Cuyahoga County is land that was claimed by the United States government through force, displacement, and treaties negotiated in bad faith. We acknowledge those of the Shawnee, Miami, Erie, Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Haudenosaunee Confederacy, whose lands we stand on, and the thousands of Native Americans representing over 100 tribes who currently live in Northeast Ohio today. We thank the Lake Erie Native American Council for helping us develop this acknowledgement. We also want to take a moment to share that CAC values equity. We choose to lead with racial equity in our work because the creation and perpetuation of racial inequalities is embedded into government and grant making. We confront the white supremacy that resides in our work because racial inequities across all indicators of success are deep and pervasive. We also recognize the power and potential that organizations who produce arts and cultural programming have as bearers of culture. These institutions have the power to write the narrative about who belongs and who is valued. We encourage arts organizations to connect with resources to advance equity in your own work, and you can visit cacgrants.org/equity or contact your grants manager to learn more. And if you are just joining us, we invite you again to introduce yourself in using the chat function. Once again, this is the application workshop for Project Support 2027. CAC has a board of 5 individuals appointed by the county executive and a staff of 7. With us today is Jake Sinatra, our Director of Grant Making Strategy and Communications. Laura Matteo is our Communications Manager, and we have 3 grant managers, myself, Eric, and Maya, that is myself, will be presenting this workshop with me today. Each CAC grant manager has a portfolio of about 100 organizations that we work with throughout the grant cycle. If you are a returning grantee, you already have a grant manager assigned to you who is your primary contact at CAC. And if you are a first-time applicant, feel free to reach out to any of us and we'll be happy to assist you. A grant manager will be assigned to new applicants once you have submitted your application. And again, welcome to those joining us this afternoon. I hope this workshop will be helpful to you and your organizations as you prepare for CAC's application deadline over the next several weeks. In today's workshop, we're going to cover CAC's mission, history, and purpose here in Cuyahoga County. We'll give an overview of CAC's 2027 grant opportunity, which is project support, CAC's funding criteria, and the 2027 project support application. And we'll outline next steps for organizations. And of course, we'll leave room for questions, but feel free to add questions to the chat throughout the presentation if something comes up. And I will hand it over to Eric to share more about CAC.
Thanks, Maya. Cuyahoga Arts and Culture is the public funder for arts and culture nonprofit organizations in Cuyahoga County and the largest funder of arts and culture in the region. Cuyahoga County residents created CAC in 2006 when they approved a tax on cigarettes to support arts and culture in our community. In November 2024, Cuyahoga County residents approved a tax increase of the same levy, and this increase now runs through 2035. CAC is an independent political subdivision of the state of Ohio. Though we work closely with our local elected officials, we are not part of the county government. Since 2006, CAC has invested more than $270 million in more than 500 organizations, and in 2026 alone, CAC is investing $12.9 million through grants to more than 300 organizations who bring arts and culture to life in our community. Our mission is to inspire and strengthen the community by investing in arts and culture. Our vision is for all Cuyahoga County residents to experience a meaningful cultural life. The content we're discussing today comes directly from CAC's 2027 Project Support Guidelines. This document outlines the grant cycle and serves as the roadmap for the entire grant process. It is approved by CAC's board and is shared publicly with applicants and panelists. I encourage you all to give it a close read as you're getting ready to work on your application. The purpose of CAC's Project Support Grant Program is to promote public access and encourage the breadth of arts and culture programming in our community by supporting Cuyahoga County-based projects. Project support grants are open to 501c3 organizations, both with and without a primary mission of arts and culture as determined by CAC. Grants may range from $1,000 to $7,500 for nonprofit organizations based in Cuyahoga County. For project support, a one-to-one grant match is required. 50% of the match can be in-kind for all project support grants. The remaining match must be cash, such as other grants, donations, ticket revenue, sponsorships, etc. So what is arts and culture? Arts and culture is defined by the Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 3381, which is CAC's enabling law, as including but not limited to literature, theater, music, dance, ballet, painting, sculpture, photography, motion pictures, architecture, archaeology, history, natural history, or the natural sciences. Our definition is broad and can include many different types of projects, but we do have specific determinations of what is and isn't arts and culture. It's also important to point out that CAC's definition of arts and culture includes the natural sciences. This means that we fund science and nature-based programming, in addition to other disciplines like music, performing arts, and visual arts. A few areas that do not fit within our definition of arts and culture include yoga, language classes, and martial arts. It's fine if projects include some of these activities, but it must primarily be an arts and culture project by our definition. Projects must meet this definition, and your grants manager is happy to speak with you further if you have specific questions. So what is a project? We define a project as a specific or connected set of activities with a beginning and an end, explicit goals or objectives, and a predetermined cost that does not equal the organization's total annual budget. Projects may be one-time events, such as a festival or an exhibit, or a defined series of events, such as a sequence of classes or a series of productions. Projects must start and end in the 2027 calendar year, so that's January 1st to December 31st, 2027. Projects must take place in Cuyahoga County. Projects must be arts or cultural activities with a public programming component, and projects that do not clearly articulate their public programming components will not be eligible for funding. It's also important to note that open to the public does not mean that the project or program has to be free. To be eligible for the 2027 Project Support Grant, applicant organizations must meet all of the following criteria. They must be a 501c3 organization as verified through the IRS Publication 78 by the Go Verify service. They must have a permanent and viable base of operations in Cuyahoga County for at least 1 year prior to June 25th, 2026. They must have created, produced, or presented arts and culture programs in Cuyahoga County that are open to the public within the previous 2 years prior to June 25th, 2026. and they must provide required financial documents, which for all organizations means that they must provide an IRS Form 990, 990EZ, or 990N for the most recently completed fiscal year. And eligible organizations must also be incorporated and authorized to do business in Ohio as verified by the Ohio Secretary of State. Additionally, two organizations cannot use their CAC funding for the same project. Only one organization will be considered for funding. Organizations may receive either a project support or a general operating support grant, but not both during each grant year. Within these eligibility requirements, many of the organizations that receive CAC funding under the project support program do not have a primary mission of arts and culture, but are doing amazing arts and cultural programming through their work. Current and past grant recipients have included community development corporations, after-school programs, and mental health agencies, as well as some organizations that focus only on arts and cultural programming. For a list of types of organizations who are ineligible to apply, please see our guidelines. Some examples include private non-operating foundations, units of government, and fundraising organizations such as Friends of groups. Again, please see the guidelines for a full listing. Projects supported by CAC project support grants must have a public programming component or some part of your project open to Cuyahoga County residents. Some examples include public concerts, events, activities, festivals, etc. Things that are open to county residents. Alternatively, your project can feature public programming around a public display of the arts and culture component of your project. So for example, a mural by itself would not be an eligible project because it does not include a public programming component. There would also need to be an event that was open to the public, or maybe a series of workshops led by the muralist that is open to the public. There has to be some type of public programming to be included in your project for it to be considered eligible. If you have questions about this component and how it applies to your specific project, please review the project support guidelines or contact us. The maximum grant amount that an applicant can request is determined by CAC staff as outlined on this slide. Here are some notes for how your project support grant size is determined. 2027 project support offers grants up to $5,000 or $7,500. Maximum grant request amounts are determined by an organization's CAC grant history and their budget size. The maximum grant request amount of up to $5,000 is for new applicants or organizations who have not received funding from CAC within the last 4 years. So that dates back to 2022. This request amount is also for returning applicants who file IRS Form 990N and or have budgets of $50,000 or less in the most recently completed fiscal year. The maximum request amount up to $7,500 is for returning applicants who have received funding from CAC within the last 4 years and who also file IRS Form 990 or Form 990EZ and have budgets of $50,000 or more in the most recently completed fiscal year. In your application, you may request any amount up to that maximum request amount. The application and approval process is highlighted in the project support guidelines on page 7 for you to review. However, for transparency, all recommended grant amounts will be shared with each applicant before CAC board approval. Regardless of either maximum request amount, please note that your request amount can be no more than half of the overall project cost. So for example, if you apply for a grant of $5,000, you must submit a project with a budget of at least $10,000 to be eligible for that request amount. Now, I'll turn things back over to Maya.
Great, thank you. So CAC's funding criteria are public benefit, artistic and cultural vibrancy, and organizational capacity. Public benefit carries the most weight in the grant review process. Funding criteria are important to consider when working on your application because panelists will assess all parts of your application against the funding criteria. They are the rubric on which your application is reviewed, and the funding criteria ensure that all applications are judged by the same standards. Our funding priorities remain unchanged from previous years. All CAC applicants use their applications and reports to demonstrate their alignment to CAC's funding priorities in relation to their CAC grant. We are looking to see how organizations meet this funding criteria through their projects specifically. As a public funder, centering residents and community vibrancy is central to our work. We are meant to ensure grant recipients foster a sense of belonging for all residents through their publicly funded activities. If your application shows sufficient evidence of meeting CAC's funding criteria, you will be eligible for funding. As you're working on the application, take the time to read through the full definitions of each of the funding criteria in the glossary for applicants. There's a clear link between our funding criteria and our application questions to help applicants show they're meeting the requirements of our funding. All our funding criteria should thread through your application, but there are a few key questions that address the criteria directly. It's a good idea to have the funding criteria page of the guidelines handy when you're writing your application. The panelists will be doing the same thing when they review the application. So let's spend a few minutes to cover each of the funding criteria and talk about where and how you might address each of them in your application. So the first is public benefit, which is an organization's ability to meaningfully connect with its community through its project. A few examples of public benefit might be inviting neighbors to serve on an advisory board, marketing the program broadly, or training volunteers to ensure all participants feel welcome. In the application, there are a few questions directly referencing public benefit. Define your community, and also how will you connect with your community through your project? How will you be inclusive and foster belonging for all people? When answering the first question about community, you can show that you truly know your organization's community by being specific. A community may be defined by geography, identity, or affinity. Every project will be serving a different community, and your community is very unlikely to be all of Cuyahoga County. A strong project is one that centers its community, but it's welcoming and inclusive of the wider public. In the second question, you can speak to how your organization's programming is welcoming to a wider scope of people, how the programming is a place that anyone can feel welcome and that they belong. Artistic and cultural vibrancy is our second criteria. It is an organization's ability to create a relevant and engaging project. This is not the same as artistic excellence or artistic quality. We intentionally don't use those terms as they are very subjective. You'll have the opportunity to address this throughout the application, and some examples of how an organization can demonstrate artistic and cultural vibrancy might be building the capacity of arts and cultural professionals, helping them to thrive. Incorporating a process of reflection to ensure that programming is relevant to or created with its community. This may look like surveys, research, or communicating with targeted communities to gain different perspectives. Engaging a diverse team of arts and cultural professionals qualified to achieve the mission while complying with all applicable anti-discrimination laws. Organizational capacity is our third criteria. It is an organization's ability to successfully plan for and manage its project and resources. This will also be addressed throughout the application. Some examples of how an organization can demonstrate organizational capacity include, but are not limited to, setting goals, measuring progress, and evolving, recruiting and retaining a diverse staff and board that can carry out the mission while complying with all applicable anti-discrimination laws, planning strategically to achieve and maintain a strong financial position, which you can demonstrate in your project budget section. An example question associated with the criteria is describe your team and include who will be involved in the project and how they are qualified. I've mentioned belonging a couple times now, and so we define belonging and several other important terms in our glossary, which is linked in the guidelines, and we can share now as well. Words like diverse, sharing power, community, and others. Actually, we will share all of the things that we've mentioned in a slide at the end of our PowerPoint presentation, which we will be sharing with you guys tomorrow, so do not fret. Belonging is about an unwavering commitment to not simply tolerating and respecting difference, but ensuring that all people are welcome and feel that they belong in a given space. This graphic, which comes from the John A. Powell and the Othering and Belonging Institute, is a great example of that. Belonging is not just about inviting people into the circle, but expanding it, bringing more chairs in. It is about bridging between differences, not requiring people to change or integrate. It's about co-creating and co-owning. In organizations and institutions, this concept should be present at all levels, not just in an education or outreach department, but especially in leadership where power is held. Belonging in practice will look different at every organization, but it will not include tokenizing people of color, extractive partnerships with smaller organizations, or outreach programs into communities where you have no trusting relationships built. Applications that don't demonstrate understanding and respect for their community will not be recommended for funding, and organizations that cultivate belonging throughout their work will be able to demonstrate strong connection to our funding criteria. So first, we're going to go into the 2027 project support application process, which I know you guys have all been waiting for. Remember that panelists are looking for evidence of the funding criteria throughout your application. And this application process will start with the organizational overview, which includes your mission statement, organizational history, and contact information. The next section is the eligibility section, and this is where you confirm your core mission, authorization to do business, base of operations, demographics, 990s, and your organizational budget, and proof of programming. After that is the project basics. And this is where you'll share your project details, such as the title, the dates of your project, location, participant information, like the numbers of expected participants. Next is the project narratives, is where you'll connect your project to our funding criteria. Those are the questions we just went over in the last few slides. And then is your project budget and financials. Here you will share your request amount and plan to raise matching income. You don't need to have these income sources committed or in the bank at the time of the application. You will share a budget that includes your actuals when you submit your final report at the end of your project. And in the application, organizations have the option to submit their budget using their own budget template or using the template provided via a link in the application. The provided template is an editable template, and you should make the appropriate adjustments to make sure your budget best shares the work that you will be doing and your plans to ensure that the project is financially feasible. Likewise, an optional narrative question has been added to the application where applicants can explain their project budgets. If you think a reviewer would have questions about your budget or wouldn't be sure how money is being raised or spent on your project, then it would be good to provide additional context in the optional question. Please note, budget should only include costs associated with your project and should not include your entire organizational budget. Your plan should be detailed enough to inspire confidence that your organization can meet the matching requirements, fundraise and spend responsibly, and support any and all activities described in your project description. And finally, there is the support materials. Your support materials enhance the narrative and help bring your project to life and are very important for the application. They can be images, videos, links to online pages, survey results, letters of support, or anything else that can help a panelist understand your organization or project. Panelists will review up to 3 support materials. Don't overload them with information. So example, if you have a play and you have a script, there's no need to submit the entire script. but do bring your project organization to life by creating a photo collage rather than submitting just one photo, for example. Consider how you can demonstrate the 3 funding criteria, especially public benefit, in your chosen support materials. Support materials are important application component that are worth your time and effort to consider. We have an FAQ sheet about support materials linked in the last slide of this presentation, and it's on page 15 of the guidelines that can help with this piece that I'd recommend looking at when you get there. So, what can CAC funds be used for? This is important to keep in mind as you're preparing the budget that will be proposed along with your project. In addition to direct costs like artist fees, supplies, marketing materials, your CAC grant can include administrative costs and logistics, such as permits, security, costs for things that help facilitate your arts and culture project are acceptable. CAC grants cannot be used for receptions, international travel, activities outside of Cuyahoga County, or components of your project that don't relate to arts and culture. So for example, the bouncy house at a street festival. Bouncy house is fun, but it's not directly needed for the arts and cultural programming to occur. It's okay if these are part of your project, but they cannot be covered by CAC funding. The CAC guidelines have a comprehensive list of funding restrictions, and please be sure to review it. Project support grants are matching grants, which means grantees must match the CAC grant with other funds. Up to half of that match can be in kind. Matching funds can come from other grants, such as donations, ticket sales, and member dues, but may not come from other CAC grants or another organization's CAC grant. And with that, I will hand it over to Davon to share more about the timeline and how to access the application.
Thank you, Maya. So here on the screen, you can see there's a timeline and application overview that'll help you plan. So the application opened yesterday, Monday, May 4th. From May through June, you should be getting connected with CAC by signing up for the email list, registering with your online application and reporting system, participating in technical assistance opportunities like the workshop we're doing right now, and office hours for completing your application. Project support applications are due on Thursday, June 25th at 4:30. Late and incomplete applications will not be accepted though. Once applications are submitted, grant managers will complete a first review of the project support applications to make sure they're eligible to go to panel. The next step is the panel review. We invite panels of experts to review the applications in the online panels by providing them written feedback and for all eligible project support applications. Panelist scores are based on how the project meets CAC's funding criteria, and most organizations receive a percentage of their requested amount. However, applicants who demonstrate weak evidence that the funding criteria are not met will not be recommended for funding. Panel scores and reviews are expected to be completed by the end of September, and all organizations will be informed of their results soon after. Those scores and recommendations are then approved at the regular meeting of our board and trustees, typically in November. After funding recommendations are approved by the board, grant agreements will be issued and our team will be in touch as we prepare and begin the 2027 grant year. Again, as a reminder, you can find this information and more in our 2027 guideline documents. For key dates and application requirements, please see page 5 of the 2027 guidelines. So I did want to take a moment to orient where you can find information beyond this workshop. So just give me a second, I'll set up a screen share so I can walk through this with you guys. Okay. So as you can see on the screen, this is our website, cacgrants.org. And this is home to some very useful tools for the grant application period. and the most important thing being the grant guidelines. You'll always have access to the guidelines for our programs via the website. There's a board approved documents there as well that serve as a roadmap for the grant application and program year. All the information we discussed in this workshop connects back to those guidelines. And so I recommend anyone applying for a grant to review those documents carefully. You can find the guidelines by clicking grants. And you can see on the overview, you can look at each of the grant programs and their guidelines. Pay attention to the year, of course. But once you have reviewed the guidelines, you can go ahead and prepare to move forward with the application. The grant pages also have other useful information to get through, like workshops, deadlines, and the link to the online application and reporting system, which you can get there by clicking this button here, which will land you here on our application portal. On any page you navigate to, the upper right-hand corner of that page will get you quickly to the reporting system, as I showed. So once you click that link to get to the application portal, you'll go ahead and log in. So as mentioned, the applications are completed using our online and reporting system. This year, we are transitioning to a new system for project support applications. So current grantees, you already have profiles created for you, and you just would need to create a new password to log in. Current grantees should have received an email in April with instructions to access their profile. If you cannot locate that email, please reach out to us. We'll go ahead and get you all set up and good to go. And just for further clarification, we use information that we had on file before April. So if you have a new email or anything, just try to log in, but reach out to us so we can grant that access for you. So new applicants or new organizational contacts will need to make a new profile. The process is simple, and you'll need to follow the prompts on the screen when you select create a new account, which you can see right here. New applicants must make sure they're signing up with their organization's EIN number, which is a requirement. If you encounter any issues, please reach out to our grants manager. Only verified 501c3 organization applications will be reviewed for panel. So I'm going to go ahead and just log myself in so you guys can see the new portal. Wonderful. So once you are logged in, you want to locate the Opportunities tab to access the application. And then you'll go ahead and click View to open the opportunity. So here's the first landing page of the project support application. As you'll see, we have short information here and contact information should you run into any issues, as well as another link for the guidelines to ensure that you have access to that information. From this point, you're going to go ahead and click Start Here so you can begin the application process. So once you click that, you'll be prompted to update your organization profile's information. Ignore this information. It's test account information. I forgot to look at it before I came here. But once you look through this information is information that is needed for CAC to keep up to date with your information, your organizations, and your personal information. So you're going to need to go ahead and read through everything and make sure this information is up to date. And you can make edits to each field like so. So today I want to be Davon with 2 A's. Once you have reviewed all of the information on your profile and you think it's all good to go, you're going to go ahead and click Continue to Submission. And this will allow you to start the application process. So with the organizational profile and the application, you will receive notifications stating that your submissions are being reviewed by the team. So don't be alarmed once you get past that organizational page and you receive an email of accepting your submission. Don't worry, it's just keeping you up to date on the processes, and then you'll receive another update once everything has been approved. So, as I said, you can go ahead and start the application process from here. Please keep in mind that when you're completing the application, you should designate a primary contact at your organization. This person will receive all of the communications from CAC going forward, so be sure that this person understands their role and is a regular email checker. Also, note to save your application along the way. You can do that by clicking the Save Draft button down here in the lower left-hand corner. Not submitting could result in your applications not being reviewed, so just be sure to make sure you save everything and keep that date and time deadline at the front of your mind when completing. And that is how you access the new application in our application portal. So I'll go ahead and log out, and then I will stop my screen share. Oh, not a new screen share. Okay, and we are back. So moving on from that, before we close and move to questions, we just want to highlight that we do offer application office hours. Once our office hours are hosted by our team to help the application process and the requirements, it's an internal space just for applicants to help answer questions or any final questions you have as you complete your application. You're always welcome to reach out to your grant manager if you have any questions outside of the office hours as well. But we will go ahead and provide you with links to sign up registrations after this webinar, along with the other mentioned materials you'll be receiving tomorrow. And with that being said, we have successfully made it through the 2027 Project Support Application webinar. We'll now hold space for any of you who have any questions or concerns. We are aware that there's a lot of information that was presented. So as mentioned, we'll have a follow-up email after this workshop with all of the links shared, plus additional information. If you don't have any immediate questions, please take some time to digest this information and feel free to attend any of our technical assistance opportunities for assistance, and meaning office hours. Thank you again for participating with us today, and have a great rest of your week.
Okay, so there was one question.
Oh, okay.
No, all good. So are there word limits on each category? Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead, David.
Yes, there are word limits, but we are doing character counts, and the character counts do include your spaces. So it's a good idea to get into the application as soon as possible. If you're someone who works outside of applications, like in Word documents, I would say just plan ahead before the deadline to make sure that your character counts fit within the limit for each field. If you do this ahead of time, this will provide you ample opportunity to trim down some information or to adjust so that it can go through with the application.
If we received GOS for 26-27, are we eligible to apply for 27 project support grant?
Unfortunately, no. As mentioned earlier in the workshop, CAC will only fund one grant opportunity for each organization or grantee. And then 2 organizations cannot use the same funds for the same project. So if you're in GOS, you're good this year. There's no application to worry about. You guys have a 2-year commitment, and we'll see you at application season next year.
If we are interested in funding for a mural, would we need to have the mural design determined for the application?
No. No.
Right.
You don't have to have the... Okay, go ahead.
Oh, gee, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, you don't need to have the mural design determined. If you could provide as much information about who is working on the project as possible, any concept, any any information that you can provide would be helpful. And also, if you are an organization that is applying with a mural, please keep in mind that you do have to have a public programming component. So I just want that to be front of mind as you're completing your application as well, because that's going to be a very large part of the review for that application. It says, where's the office to attend the office hours? Do we need to make an appointment?
So office hours are virtual. So we will be sending out registration links for folks to be able to sign up for those office hours. And then you can pop in the office hours. You can stay as long as you want. You can pop in and ask a question and go. It's a very laid back opportunity for us to help you with any questions you have during the application process.
And the office hours too are listed on our website, so you can see when they are and sign up there as well.
Did you say that applicants typically receive only a percentage of their request? Does this imply that we should ask for the maximum eligible? We would be a new applicant.
Yeah, so when we say that, we're kind of giving you insight into how panel affects your final funding amount. So when panels score, their final scores will contribute to the award amount that you have. So typically, folks will receive a percentage, but that percentage can be upwards of 80, 90%, 100%. We just want it to be very transparent. So the more detail that you are in your application, the more you kind of think in the lens of someone reviewing for the assessment for your scores, should help you receive the maximum amount that you can be credited. What was the rest of the question?
I think that answers it. And many organizations are receiving the full amount. So yeah, that's great. For new applicants, does your organization budget need to be less than 50,000?
No. So the 50,000 is just in the highlight. New organizations, regardless of your budget amount, will receive a max or can have a maximum request of 5,000. But once you're a returning grantee, that 50K will have a greater impact on your maximum award request amount.
These were all really great questions, everyone. Is there anything else that's coming up for anyone while we're here? Well, while we're here, I'll just say that you notice that we highlight the guidelines a lot. It's because there's a lot of really good information in it, not just because we worked on it for a long time. And you can access it from a lot of different points, from the website, from the application. It will be included in our follow-up email tomorrow. So please do make sure you take some time to look over that. Do you ever anticipate the max award amount to go back up? At this point, we have the maximum award amounts set as they are, guidelines, and those approvals come from the board each year. I think at this point we're staying steady, so I don't have more information on that. Okay. Anyone else? Well, we'll stay on, but I hope you guys all have a really wonderful day. We are available for questions as they come up. Happy applications.